It's Marty. Which programming language is the fastest? For this video, we're going to be comparing Python, Java, and C++. And I know there are a ton more programming languages than that, but if I did do a video on all of them, that would take forever. The fundamentals of how each programming language was designed is what determines how each programming language performs. I'll start by taking a look at Python. Now, the way that Python runs is a little strange if you ask me. I wrote this about a year ago when I first started programming, and I did not realize how messy of a programmer I was then. I learned, hopefully. Anyway, the way that Python code runs is it's interpreted into semi-machine, semi-human code. Now, the interpreter actually runs when you're actually running the code. This means when you double-click on your Python application or game or something like that, then the interpreter starts at the bottom and starts interpreting it as you're running, trying to compile it into usable machine code, which is ones and zeros, a binary. So as you're actually running it here, you've got pygame.display.update. It's trying to interpret it, then compile it while you're actually running it, thus making a major hit on the performance. Java runs differently. The way Java runs is it's a step up from Python because the program gets compiled into usable machine codes, a binary, when you start up the application. But after the initial startup, then your application is already compiled, so then after that, it's a lot smoother sailing. C++ beats both Python and Java hands down because C++ is pre-compiled. What that means is that it takes this human code, like this here isn't machine code yet. This is just code that we can understand. But the computer, if you told the computer hashtag include this weird library, the computer's going to throw up its hands and say, what are you even talking about? The computer reads instructions as ones and zeros. That's because it's essentially electronic switches that switch on or off. So it's either a 1 or a 0. There's no in between. So what we need with C++ is a compiler to compile it into the binary or the executable on Windows. This way, when you actually go to run the C++ application, it's already pre-compiled. The compiler has to do nothing. The computer just does this pre-set out set of instructions like you can see here. You might be noticing what the little counter is in the corner. That's an MSI Afterburner counter, which is counting how many frames per second we're getting. If you're a nerdy gamer, you probably keep track of how many frames per second you're getting. Well, this is 800 frames per second. The average frame rate in games is about 60, so this is way better. And that's because this game is an extremely simple game. You might be saying to yourself, so then why does Java perform worse than C++ if Java is pre-compiled when you actually go to run it? Good question. Java runs also on top of something called a virtual machine. This here is the actual machine. Like this here, Windows, this is the actual machine, the actual OS. But Java has another layer on top of that, which communicates with the Windows OS in this case. With Java, the philosophy is write the code once, run it anywhere. The virtual machine is what makes Java multi-platform. So if you write code on Windows, it's going to work on Linux and Mac as well. But because of this, you can't take advantage of each specific architecture like you can in C++. In C++, you pre-compile the binary for each particular operating system. This means that if you compile a program for Windows, it's not going to work on Linux more than likely. You would have to natively compile it on Linux to actually get it working on Linux. It's a negative and a positive at the same time. The negative side being that sometimes porting over to Linux after you create a full-blown game on Windows can be a pretty daunting task, which is why it's important to keep a multi-platform in mind from day one when you're programming. But it's a positive because you can take advantage of each specific architecture to optimize performance for performance gains. Java, on the other hand, adds this layer that's the same on any platform, so you cannot take advantage of each speed. Plus, since it needs another layer to actually get to the actual operating system, which needs to get down to the assembly, which is ones and zeros, to finally get to the processor, which does everything, and Python runs even slower than both of them because it's trying to interpret it as you run it. So then what is Python used for in programming? Python is an excellent introductory language to programming. Its syntax is extremely simplified. You don't have to deal with advanced concepts such as memory management, pointers, and such like you would deal with on C++ or Java. And also, Python is very versatile. You can do, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can design websites with Django. You can design web applications. You can do robotics with the goPygo. For simple games, it's definitely possible to do simple games with Python, although it is not recommended as a gaming language. Java is an excellent choice if you're interested in web applications, because again, of Java's virtual machine, it's going to run the same on any platform, Windows, Linux, or Mac. If you try to write a web application with C++, it's probably not going to work so good because you host it on a website, but then a Linuxer goes to take a look at the website. Well, it's probably not going to work because it's probably not going to be compiled for Linux. It is possible to do web applications and websites with C++, although it's not recommended. It's very difficult, to say the least. It is possible to run 3D games in Java, even advanced ones. It's just going to lag in performance compared to C++. And C++ is the go-to programming language for gaming. 3D video games, virtual reality, augmented reality, no problem with C++. Because Because C++, as far as I've seen, is the fastest programming language there is, next to assembly, which assembly is ones and zeros. C++ is used extensively in the Windows operating system. Also, game studios such as EA Games, they're using C++. And actually, C++ is what powers game engines such as Blender, Unity, and Unreal. The gist of it is, if you have no experience working with programming before, I'd recommend going with Python. That was actually what I started programming with. I used to use Python a lot, and now I don't use it at all. Once you get a handle on C++ and just some basic programming concepts, then you kind of have a fork in the road there. If you're interested in web applications and web development, I'd recommend going with Java. Or if you're interested in games, then C++ would definitely be the road you'd want to take there. But Johnny Stritman, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the creator of C++, he says that there's still no real limitations to C++. And that sums up this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. And thank you for watching and subscribing. Every single subscriber definitely encourages us to keep going forward. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be seeing you next one.